We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. Would you like to lead the pledge, sir?
Sure.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Go ahead and do the roll call, please.
John Sullivan.
Present.
Gene Matson.
Present.
Earl Cunningham.
Present.
Glenn Minnick.
Present.
Rita Beatty Kelly.
Present.
Harold Parker.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a motion for the approval of the minutes, please?
I make the motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Check your microphone.
Sorry, is that better? We need the approval for the agenda also.
I would move that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we will go ahead and get started with this evening's petitions. First petition we have is petitioner Fritz Family LLC, represented by Charlie Hendricks. Petitioner respectfully petitions the Plan Commission to subdivide the parcel into a 27-lot subdivision located next to the east of 8202 West Paz Road, Michigan City, Indiana, Cool Spring Township, Zone B2 on 16.43 acres, parcel number 460503400200 3046. Okay, Mr. Fritz, Mr. Hendricks.
Ms. Beatty, may I explain why we're here tonight and what it is we're doing?
Yes, please.
Last month, this petition was presented to the commission. The code requires a majority of the commission to make a pass or a fail. We had a quorum of 5 people. So in order for anything to pass or fail, we had to have a unanimous decision all the way around. Okay, so we had a vote of, well, ultimately 3-2 on voice call. I think one person changed their vote. Yes. Either way, so that would be considered as non-action, and it gets set over to the next meeting, and it's presented until such time as we have a majority of the commission voting either to pass or fail. Any questions on that? Now, the second part of this question, this goes to what's presented as well as what anything that a remonstrator would present. Your decision is whether the application complies with the ordinance only. So if you think the houses are ugly, or you think they're too close together, or those are irrelevant issues. In the building commissioner's opinion, you got to give them your opinion in a minute, counts, but you're deciding whether they complied with the subdivision ordinance, and that is all. And if you decide no, that's fine, but you have to give a reason why you think they did not comply with the ordinance. That's how our code is written. Any questions on that?
We have to actually state a reason why we plan to
Yes.
say no?
Yes.
Why?
Because if it's appealed, the appellee needs to know why you said no.
Then are we pulled into court then if we give a judgment like that?
No, that's discretionary, but they have to have the ability to appeal if they don't like your decision, okay? And so if they appeal, they have a right to know why you said no. And frankly, the lawyers have to have something to argue when we get there.
In the findings.
Okay, because I do findings of fact and conclusions of law after you make every decision. And in those findings, I have to say why you said no.
All right. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, I'd like a clarification one more time. Make sure I get this right, because it seems like it's different than what I've heard in the past. At the last meeting, we only had 5 people here, which was a quorum. And now you're saying that because there weren't 5 votes, which would be a majority of our full board, to take action for or against, he can come back every month until there's 5 votes one way or another.
Pretty much, because it's considered no action. And frankly, I had to look at this after the meeting and figure out where we're at, okay?
That's why I'm asking, because that's not what I've been told in the past.
Well, this is one of the few areas of the zoning code that specifically states, and I was just mentioning Annie, the other 2 petitions we have now don't specifically say a majority of the Plan Commission, okay? But this code section specifically says a majority of the Plan Commission.
Okay.
you. Anything else from the board? Okay, take it away. Please state your name and address.
My name
please.
is Matt Garitano from Charles Hendricks and Associates Surveying and Engineering here in LaPorte. Our offices are at 512 Lincoln Lane. I'm here to present to you on behalf of the Pritz Family LLC the proposed subdivision Winding Creek Way on Paz Road. The parent parcel is presently zoned R2A. It has not been updated on Beacon. That was from the last meeting. I haven't checked that. It may have been updated since last month, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Winding Creek Way is a 27-lot townhome subdivision with one single-story family houses that have 3 bedrooms and 2 car garages for each unit. Prices for said homes should be in the $225,000 market. The subdivision will contain a private roadway to be maintained by the HOA. The subdivision will have Michigan City sewer and water. The subdivision contains 2 oversized retention ponds, not detention ponds. We're going to be holding on to all of our water. The subdivision will also have a walkway path for homeowners. These residences are not apartments or rentals. The private roadway will have a concrete ribbon curb with environmentally friendly stormwater drainage swales that will aid in naturally filtering out contaminants and salt from the roadway. The layout and design of Winding Creek Way will maintain the character of Paz Road in being residential in nature. There will be no driveways onto Paz Road. All driveways will be on private roadways inside the subdivision. The subdivision will also have trees, light posts, fire hydrants, and limited sidewalks. The roadway will be designed and constructed to LaPorte County highway standards. The construction process of the proposed subdivision will be done in 4 phases. The lots meet and exceed the size requirements for R2A zoning, which is 5,000 square feet a unit and 10,000 square feet a lot. The units themselves will have approximately 1,400 square foot. We have a wetland protection zone to the east. All captured surface stormwater will be directed to the retention ponds and not to that wetland. We will also be protecting the wetland with a 50-foot vegetative strip. The property is not in a flood zone and is more than 50 foot above Trail Creek in elevation lines. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I do have a question. Michigan City Sewer and Water.
That's correct.
How about stormwater?
Stormwater will be contained on site with retention ponds.
This year that one didn't happen too good with all the rain we had, so I don't know about that particular spot, but we had a lot of stormwater damage outside.
Outside of?
The containment areas.
Okay.
So how are you sure that it's going to contain all the water?
Well, we oversized the ponds for the site, and we are holding on to all our water.
So what happens if they overflow? Where does the water go then?
Well, the overflow, if that would even be possible, the natural elevation and the grading of the land would flow to the north, which is the remainder of the owner's property. So it would flow onto himself.
And then where does it go then? Does that migrate through the ground, or is it in a ditch, or is it a Trail Creek, or what is it?
Migrating through the soil to the north.
Where does it end up?
Well, I mean, ultimately in the groundwater. I mean, but that's...
You're not answering my question. Where does the water go when it floods?
North.
North. And what facilities do you have in that area contain the floodwaters? Is there storm and water sewers that take care of the water if it goes north?
I mean, the closest thing would be... Or is it a
drainage ditch into Trail Creek?
Well, the closest thing would be, the south side of right-of-way of Highway 20. But it would have to go through all of the ground before it could get there. I mean, it would have to be a catastrophic failure of the entire field. All the fields out there.
As I remember, there is a pretty large drainage ditch on the south side of.
That's what I'm saying. Where does it go? Who's taking care of that?
Well,
is that city?
I'm not sure that overflows to.
I know I can't say specifically where the drainage ditch for Highway 20 ultimately ends up.
I don't care about Highway 20. Okay. So your ground would go to 20, and then it would go to.
When you say the ground's going to absorb it, there's been many occasions when water's been across Highway 20.
Yeah.
Okay. I
So don't try to mislead the board here that the water will be absorbed by the existing ground. That's not the case.
I don't have the numbers specifically for a flood that you're talking about to flood the entire property and all adjacent properties to it. I mean, I could find that information out for you.
I just wondered if there was stormwater other than just runoff. There's no stormwater sewer going to this area.
No, we are containing all our stormwater for hard surface on this property.
The standard is like a 7-year flood, the stormwater retention that you're doing, it's for like a 7-year flood.
I can't give. I don't have the specific numbers for that. But
I mean, that's
usually
Well, they're going above and beyond. They're exceeding what they have to do for this type to fulfill this requirement.
The initial design was for detention with the required amount for holding on to.
Right.
But there were some concerns about stormwater, just as you presented, and we made those changes and changed the detention ponds to retention ponds and made them even bigger. So instead of legally letting the amount that we were required to hold on to, we are holding all of it and made the ponds larger. So if you would want specific numbers as to past this pond where that water's going to go, I could get those for you, but I don't have that in front of me. And we specifically oversized it for that reason.
So Glenn, you think there's enough drainage to take care of the amount of water?
I mean, I think the developer owns more than 2 times the size of this property to the north. I mean, I think this is going to be a good example of how it's going to handle the water, and I don't think there's any problem with it. There's a lot of space there.
It's been a wet area in the past up there, it can be pretty wet in that place.
It is, but there's still, I mean, it's all grass now. It's all going to be grass where before you had haphazard, native brush on the field or tillage, and I mean, tillage compacts the ground. So I don't see a problem. Like I said, I think it's going to be good to see how this works out, to see if that land handles the water, and then if there's going to be a future expansion, that would be a determining factor on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Are there any remonstrators for or against this petition? Okay, please come up and state your name and address, and please keep in mind that the only consideration is going to be if this complies with our county ordinance. Only issues with that.
Sure. Hi, Tom Bancy, 5271 North Johnson Road. Here we are again. And I would like to remonstrate against I live right on Johnson Road. I look right at that piece of property. We're talking about rainwater. The farm across the street actually turns into a lake quite often. I do have video of that. And I just think that personally, as a homeowner in that area, now going on 15 years, I don't particularly see the need to keep on putting in these high-density subdivisions. I mean, if it was single-family homes on that property, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But there's so much traffic now on Johnson coming through on Paz. Again, we can't hardly get out our driveways. I also think that it's the more people you just keep packing in, the bigger strain it is on services. Now you're not in the city any longer, you're in the county. And so you've got, I'm sure, Michigan City would help out, of course, but, we've got sheriff, we've got the Cool Spring Fire Department, I mean, so there's just more strain on already stressed systems. And so I just, personally, again, if it was single family homes, directly across the street from the subdivision are single family homes. And quite frankly, I mean, they keep saying, these are going to be going. It's 1,400 square feet, going for $250,000. How? I mean, Sister Hartsville, get it. It goes through. I just can't see. There's subsidized housing right next door. The houses across the street, I don't know what, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 homes across the street, and right in that little spot, you're going to get $250,000 for a townhouse. I don't know. I just, I don't think we need a subdivision there. If it was single-family homes, I'd be for it. There was also, and I don't have it in hand because it goes back to when they built the other subdivision over there. But even the Army Corps of Engineers stated back then that that property couldn't handle high-density populations. At best, single-family homes, even better, leave it as farm. And I see Route 20 flood all the time. Those ditches on both the north and south side come right up to the street. You know, and it's just I don't know. It's supposed to be farm. So I'll let you sit with that. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are any other remonstrators? Please state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Jason Howard. Live at 5303 North Johnson Road. Next door neighbor with Tom that was just speaking. Am I allowed to ask any questions at all? Or?
You can state your questions and then we'll ask someone.
Okay, I was just wondering, where will the entrances be to this subdivision? Like off of which road?
Okay. And we'll have the surveyor come up and answer.
Okay. Sit back down.
No, go ahead and finish. And then we'll have
Did you go by there today? Have you been by on Paz Road today?
I haven't been on Paz Road, but I have gone home and I looked directly across to that property.
I think that
my question is, I was just wondering, are there entrances on Paz Road?
Jason, right here, just one.
Just one?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Only one. Okay. That's. I think one's too many, to be honest with you. I mean, the high school is right there. Paz Road. It's in and out. I mean, there's one way in, one way out. Yes, when you leave the school, you can go east or you can go west. It's already, I mean, it's dangerous. I have a son that goes there, that drives, and I worry about him driving on Paz Road, of all the roads in the city. Driving on Paz Road and having to turn on a Johnson Road because it's so clustered with people. And then after that new development, I forgot the name of it, the complex there, that added traffic. This is just going to add more traffic to a school that used to be safe to get to and get away from. And now it's, I don't understand. I don't know how you could put that much more traffic in front of a high school that the only way to leave is to go east or west on the same road. That's my main concern. It really is. Safety for drivers. I mean, all those kids, not just my son, but all those kids that drive to school at the high school are young, fresh drivers. I mean, to be honest. And now you're putting all that traffic right in the middle of everything. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other remonstrators for or against? Please keep in mind again that this is only consideration that complies with our ordinance. So.
Good evening. My name's Dawn Bancy. I live at 5271 North Johnson Road in Michigan City. I do have a question about the reason we're here today was based on the zoning ordinance. We had that ruling as such, but on this page on the agenda it says this property is zoned B2, and then during the presentation it was said it was zoned R2A.
It was rezoned. It's currently still listed on Beacon as B2. That's the only reason why it reads that way.
So which of the zoning ordinances required?
R2A.
No, and then that's the one that required us to come back this evening.
No.
I thought that's what you said.
No, the way they voted last time, we didn't have enough people here to vote it all up or down.
Right, and you made the comment that the other people here.
We had enough people here. We had 5 people.
Well, we didn't have a unanimous vote, and that's what we needed for it to pass. Thank you, Earl.
For that particular zoning ordinance.
No, for that. We're not here today for anything different than we were last month. We just didn't have 100% vote last month.
Right, but you said that the other people that are here for other petitions, those particular zones don't require that type of vote. That's what you said earlier. So my question is it the B2 or the R2A that required us to come back?
That had nothing to do with it. when they filed their petition, they went on to Beacon, and it said B2. That was out of date. It's really R2A.
So R2A is the zoning ordinance that required us to come back today?
No.
Because that's what your words were, is that because of that particular ordinance, that's what we needed to do.
Let me tell you what my words are, okay? Don't tell me what my words were, I'll tell you what they are.
I'm not trying to argue with you, sir, it's what I heard.
We did a unanimous vote because we only had a quorum last month, and the code said we had to have a majority of the whole commission. So last month, in order for anything to pass or fail, it had to be unanimous. It was not, so then it comes back to the commission until we have enough people to have a vote, either for or against 100%. Has nothing to do with the zoning designation whatsoever.
Can I ask where the code is available to the people?
It's online.
Okay, because I looked earlier and I could not locate that information because it wasn't until actually we were here that we were then told we could only talk about certain things that I actually couldn't find before I got here anyway.
Google the joint zoning ordinance for LaPorte County, it'll bring up a PDF.
Okay, I actually did look up your minutes as well, and they're 2 months behind to find out any of the information as well. Lastly, is that you talked about the water retention, and we talked about the idea that the north property would be able to absorb that water. If I remember correctly from last meeting, there was a discussion that they have plans to actually go to the next level of building further on that property. So that is something that I'm concerned about, that there's a vote to decide to go ahead with the plan with a future to then use that land for something else than the water that we're expecting to just absorb into the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other remonstrators for or against?
Question. Are there 8 of us here tonight?
7.
There are only 7 of us here. So if we have a 4-3 vote, then they can just come back next month?
SB 5.
Yeah, we need 5 votes either way.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I say something, Rita?
Sure.
This is the type of development that you want to see where it is because it's close to the city. Whenever you can get a development like this close to the city with city water, city sewer, and the amenities of the sewer, of the city, and then they're oversizing what they have to do. They're going above and beyond. Urban sprawl. We used to talk about urban sprawl. The further out you go, that's when you really see agriculture, and this is the type of development you want to see that's close to the city, where they can get that city water and sewer.
All right. Thank you. Would you like to come back up, Matt? Answer any of the questions that were presented?
I believe the only question that I heard was about the entrance for Paz Road, if I'm not mistaken. I showed him a photo. Yeah, there was only one entrance in. Like I said, this is going to be a private road. In the initial rough stages, we thought about doing entrances off Paz Road, but we took into consideration traffic and safety, and we, got rid of that right out the gate. We wanted to make this, one way in to try to mitigate and protect all the people in the area and those who go to school, especially the young drivers. This tries to accommodate not only the wishes of the client, but the surrounding area and population as well.
Matt,
yeah.
What is the speed limit at that point on that roadway?
I'm not certain. I know the school zone is
30.
Yeah, it's 15 when people are present, but 30 miles an hour.
So, I mean, it's pretty slow travel, so pretty safe.
So whether or not people do that, it is Paz Road. It is the cut through to Cleveland, which gets you right into town. We can't police how people are going to obey the speed limits or not obey the speed limits, but like I said, I think we made the right decision with the one entrance in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Tell me about the intersection of the new entrance at Paz Road, and I'm thinking about the grades along Paz Road.
Okay.
Are they flat? Is it hilly?
The initial travel right off the Paz is that elevation of the road is going to be about similar, somewhat the same, and then it's going to slope downhill with the natural flow of the ground.
It slopes into the property.
That's correct.
Now, what about Paz Road itself? Is it coming up the hill or down the hill?
I'm not sure if it's somewhat of a plateau there right at the intersection or not, or if it's sloped to the east of Johnson Road.
Is it kind of flat?
It's pretty close to flat.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close to flat?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about sight distances and stopping distance along Paz Road at that
There
point?
are no obstructions on the north side of the right-of-way there, so for
So
people...
if we went out and did a survey and found out that the site distance along Paz Road, you're telling us it would meet the site and stopping distances along Paz Road?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Tell me about the water a little bit. I might have missed some of these questions already, and I'm sorry. There's an awful lot of blue along the north part of the property.
That's correct.
Is this 100% retention?
100% retention.
And the drainage ordinance requires what for retention?
I don't know that number specifically.
100% of the runoff plus 50% more, something like that?
I'm not sure. I'm not certain.
So my question was, is the area or the volume you're showing in accordance with the drainage ordinance?
Yes, and then some. The ponds are oversized.
So it would be 150% at least above what's required for the ordinance.
If the ordinance is 150% or 100%, I don't know the specific percentage for oversized, but I know that
Has anybody seen or been given the calculations demonstrating that particular aspect?
We have those calculations. I don't have them presently with me, but they can be available to anybody.
At what point do those get submitted for approval by somebody?
During the construction, during the next meeting, during the construction plan process.
During a construction plan?
That's correct.
This commission?
Yeah, so this is just for the preliminary approval,
just for
favorable recommendation. We will then have to come back again with our construction plans, which then will be given up, and all the specifics of the actual construction of the subdivision will be
So
available.
all the specifics of how much water we're going to put or plan to store in there
Absolutely.
will be presented at some point. We can look
Yes.
at those.
Given we get favorable recommendation today, then yes, we would hope to be back next month.
Off-site waters. The water is drawn stopping at the easterly boundary of the property.
That's the.
It just doesn't naturally stop there, does it? It's kind of drawn that way.
Yeah, it's just this the cutoff margin for the print. It's a little bit bigger. That wet area straddles both the client's property and the easterly adjacent property.
Okay.
It just doesn't stop. Yeah, but.
Are any of the lands near and adjoining the blue area to the north or just to the south? Are those wetlands?
No.
No wetlands?
No.
Okay.
This is presently cultivated field.
I can't think of anything else for the to meet the design code for the development that would be applicable. So it sounds like until we actually see an enlarged set of drawings that all the particular parts of the subdivision ordinance are met.
Okay.
Setbacks and everything.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
For clarification's sake, the road that was pretty well being constructed today is directly across from Prairie Lane and Paz Road. It's almost like a intersection, a continuation of Prairie Lane, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just a couple questions. So everything that has been presented this evening does meet our code for us to possibly move forward with a favorable recommendation or non-favorable.
Yes,
So
they've been through the plat committee already.
Okay.
And then, like Matt said, they'll have to come back for the phase with the construction plans. So we still have to come back.
And I know there was some reference to future development. So if they were to do future development, they would still have to come back and start all over again.
yes,
The same thing
all
that they're
over.
doing right now for
Right.
this particular portion.
Right.
So any future development would require them to come back and do the same situation over again.
And I'm glad that Jeff asked what he asked about the water, and that some of the other members brought it up, because Rich couldn't be here tonight, but that was his concern, was the drainage in the water. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess at this particular time, we can ask for a motion for a favorable recommendation or a non-favorable recommendation.
Training class.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion at this time. I'd like to make a motion for a favorable recommendation for the Pritz Family LLC to subdivide the parcel east of and next to 8202 West Paz Road in Michigan City, Cool Spring Township, to subdivide that into a 27-lot subdivision.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, let's take a roll call for voting, please.
Harold Parker,
Yes.
Earl Cunningham,
Nay.
Rita Beatty,
Yes.
Gene Matzett,
Yes.
Jeff Wright.
Yes.
John Sullivan,
Yes.
Glenn Minnick.
Yes.
Turn your sign, Glenn.
Thank you. So at this particular time,
We have a quorum for a vote.
we have a quorum for a vote to make a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to move forward with the Pritz Family LLC.
We have a pass. We have favorable recommendation.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for your time. All right. We will move on to petition number 2. Petitioners LaPorte State Road 104 BTS Retail LLC and Emery Investments, represented by AR Engineering, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission to rezone the parcel to B1, Neighborhood Commercial District located at 3522 South State Road 104, LaPorte, Indiana. Pleasant Township, currently zoned M1 on 30.14 acres, parcel number 461123 476 004 000 with the exhibits. Okay, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Do we have the information on notice?
I'm Tom Cowan. I'm with the Zaremba Group. We are developers out of Cleveland. My address, 14600 Detroit Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio, 44107.
My name is Whitney Pizzala. I'm with AR Engineering. We're the civil engineering firm on the project. Our address is 4664 Campus Drive in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Speak up there.
Sorry.
To the mic.
I apologize. So we're here today to present our petition to
Wait, I
rezone.
need to make sure we have notice.
Okay, can you give him
I
a few
don't have
minutes,
to go
please?
through here.
Apologize, he's got a few there to go through, so if you can give him a couple minutes, please, thank you. And then we'll just have you start all over. They just take them up to get approval and they go sign.
Right. Microphone, you need to speak straight. Because they go make up sides.
Okay.
Right next door.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad there.
No, it's not. I've been on pause all the time.
They're all out of order. It takes a minute.
This is kind of a no-brainer.
Since it already passed plan.
Yeah, I'm going to use it. Yeah, and
Did Shannon tell you there's a remonstrator here tonight for this?
oh yeah.
It's only 3 feet from this property.
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Site plan buildings. Post office really doesn't like it. Yeah.
Notice is adequate.
Can you go ahead and please state your name and everything again? Sorry.
That's all right. My name is Whitney Pisala. I'm with AR Engineering. I'm the civil engineer for the project. Our office is 4664 Campus Drive, and that's in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're here today to present our rezone petition for about a 1.267 acre property. It's part of the big acreage of the 30 acres. I noticed in the agenda it says zoned on the 30 acres, but we're just asking for 1.267 acres, which our petition, we had a legal description drawn up for that, and it describes that size. So this is located on I forget which state route, but State Route 104. There's just south of the railroad tracks there in the Stillwell town. Just south of there's that industrial or the manufacturing building to the south there. We're proposing to rezone it to B1 so we can construct a general retail store. It's a Dollar General store for the project.
Is that it?
Yep.
Any questions from the board, please?
Is that the restaining property?
Or is that next to it?
It's next to it.
Restaining?
Yes.
Do it.
What happened? Stain.
Yeah.
We pre-stain.
Do you own all the property then?
No, we have it on a contract to purchase just the 1.2 acres.
So you only own what you want to develop right now?
Yeah.
Site plan is irrelevant for this.
Yeah.
Last month.
Anything else from the board? Any more questions? Concerns? Annie?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Are there any remonstrators for or against this petition here this evening? Please state your name and address, please.
My name is James Rimbaugh. I live at 15 South Floral, LaPorte, Indiana address, located in Stillwell. The property right here. At this point in time, I'm really not for or against, but I have a multitude of questions. One was answered earlier. I was under the impression that they were buying the entire Weiss property, but apparently that's not the case.
Correct.
I've lived at that property since 85, 34 years, and my father owned it for 21 years before that. We put up with cattle in the backyard. We put up with Weiss pre-staining since they've left town. This property, which is now owned by the tavern owner, and this property are totally unkept. It's like a jungle. My wife has to go across our fence to try to get the weeds from coming underneath our fence. So I welcome somebody that would take care of the property. My concern was, and I asked several people, is there something in this variance that they are requesting that would let them come this close to my property line there?
Point of order, if I may. They're not asking for a variance tonight, so they're asking for a zoning change.
Oh, okay.
So anything having to do with the site itself is not relevant to this board.
So, because the paper I read something about asking for a difference in distances from the road and from other...
That was at the Board of Zoning Appeals last week.
Which has been approved already.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
So that discussion on the site and access to the site and all that we had last week.
Okay.
This week, all we're talking about is whether we're going to change the zoning.
I see.
Okay.
So, is my opinion of value?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But your opinion should go to whether they want to change it from M1 to B1, meaning they want to change it from manufacturing to business, which is a much lighter use, frankly.
Okay.
Okay. But that's the issue. So if you had an opinion whether you still want it manufacturing, or you oppose it being business as opposed to manufacturing, that's the relevant opinion for this board in this discussion.
Okay. So if I don't oppose there being a business there, I'm for it.
I guess.
If I'm not real keen of it being right at my back door and wondering whether this strip that is, as I understand it, this property is theirs as well. My property ends about here. So if this is part of what they're going to do, what's going to happen to that strip? Are we still going to have a jungle?
Those issues will still be addressed when they get their building permit and they get their state release.
I see.
So, I mean, there'll be people looking at that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I guess I said my piece then.
Well, clarification, if you look at the map, last week when they were before the BZA, you see where the truck would have to turn into the parking lot?
Right here?
Yeah, see how close it is to the road?
Uh-huh.
In order for the truck to have enough of an angle to get in the lot and get out, they wanted to be a little closer to the highway, but they're wider at the other end. So they asked for a variance just to get closer so that the truck could get in and out. That make sense?
Yes, sir. Would there come a time when I would be able to get some measurements as far as how much distance is going to be between my property line and their... I drove out to the site in Kingsbury, and there's a considerable amount of blacktop concrete that covers their access for their semis to bring in their merchandise. Where there'll be a time when I'll be able to get some idea what that distance is going to be.
You have a drawing?
Yeah.
I think she has a drawing here. She'll probably show you after meeting's done or after this is over with. Because she showed us all that when we were at the board.
Okay, I couldn't make it last time, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other remonstrators for or against the petition?
Margot got anything to say? She lives out there.
I do have one comment as from last week's BZA meeting. There were several remonstrators here, and because the rumor was out that this was going to be a Dollar General distribution center, which is actually going at Westville. And most of the remonstrators, I think, were very thrilled to death that it was not going to be a distribution center, it was going to be a store. Wouldn't that be your perception as well?
That was another question that I had. At the Kingsbury store, there's a large, would appear to be a warehouse type facility behind the retail store. And this diagram didn't give me any idea as far as how big the one would be in Stillwell.
All right, any other remonstrators or questions from the board at this time? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion for petition number 2.
I'll make a motion. And whereas it fits in with the residents and is going to be a lighter use than M1, I think it's a positive thing. I'd like to make a motion, therefore, that the petitioners for the State Road 104 BTS Retail LLC and Emery Investments represented by AR Engineering be granted. Are we making a positive recommendation for this, or are we simply
rezoning?
Favorable recommendation.
So a favorable recommendation that this be rezoned to B1 Neighborhood Commercial District. It's located at 3522 South State Road 104, LaPorte, Indiana, Pleasant Township.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you much. Congratulations. All right, we'll move on to petition number 3. 111 Maples LLC, represented by Christopher Willoughby of Brady, Nelson, and James, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission to vacate a portion of a public street commonly known as Beach Drive, located to the rear, or the property is located at 111 and 115 Maple Drive in LaPorte Center Township.
Notice is adequate.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a couple handouts if I may approach.
Okay, thank you.
What I'm handing each of you is hopefully going to illustrate a little bit better. All of it's from Beacon in terms of giving you a little bit of information with regard to the homeowner and the exact home. There are multiple parcels that
We get that print ace more and we'll be doing pretty good here. Really well.
That's right.
I also have a larger, and before I go on, I am, as the chairperson mentioned, I'm Christopher Willoughby of Brady, Nelson, and James, 126 East 5th Street in Michigan City, here tonight on behalf of my client, 111 Maples LLC. I also have a larger picture or copy of the survey. As you can't see those, just for the record. I think that these adequately. I've had an opportunity to walk the property. I'm not sure if any of you have. Had the opportunity to speak to the only 2 neighbors that we were required to notice, Mr. Booty, yesterday, and sat and learned he's been there for 50 years. And as council will inform you when the time is appropriate, I have a signed consent by Mr. and Mrs. Booty. Dr. Nelson and I just ultimately couldn't cross paths. We do have their verbal consent or no remonstrators. We don't have a remonstration from them against this. But ultimately, as you can see, the intention of my drawings that I've provided are the green portions that are highlighted are all my client's property. Beach Drive is pretty much underwater. As you will see, the easternmost portion of the property is underwater in Pine Lake. And Beach Drive, I would say 90+% is underwater as well. That's never been developed. Nothing's been done with it. The main access is where you can see Beach Drive on the south portion of the drawing, and there is a dotted line that shows an easement for access. So there won't be access being cut off, and we don't think we'd legally have the basis to do that from the other neighbors that are on the island. However, this piece is not used. It's not usable. It's underwater. I've made 2 sets of pictures that kind of illustrate, as you look through these, they're going to illustrate a picture to the east of my client's property, and it'll show that there is nothing there other than, I wish Mr. Booty was here tonight, but he signed his consent, so that gets him off the hook. Again, he's been there 50 years, and I think the intention is, in our discussion with them, is the neighbors thought to do that years ago. I can't believe nobody's done it before now. But at the end of the day,
do we have ability to do PowerPoint in this room?
Go ahead. Yeah, but I don't think anybody knows how to work it tonight.
A lot better than this paper shuffling. And you know, in real life, we do use PowerPoint in industry.
Yeah, but I think Mr. Warren might be a little old school.
Yeah, and for Beacon, there are those that like to touch the paper, and so Beacon was really, those papers were only intended to give you the information of the property and show you the parcels. But ultimately, the survey gives us what we need in terms of showing the portion of the drive that we're asking to vacate, and ultimately, you know, we believe that under the law, it's supported. It hasn't been ever used, developed.
I know you did paper for me.
And want to explain to the board, because I want to do more explaining to the board, because we have a lot of more new members. I've been doing this for so long, I assume sometimes you folks have done this before. What we're doing is that we're vacating a portion of a subdivision. This was a road that was designated a subdivision, that most of which did not happen, and that's what you're recommending the commissioners to do. They ultimately decide if the roadway should be vacated, but you're deciding whether this segment of the subdivision may be vacated.
So if we vacate this, it belongs to this yellow piece of paper. All this one is one parcel then?
So yes, sir.
One parcel, one house now, or is that several houses?
And it's one house that is subject to zoning, and I would believe if we were to do more, we would be back here on a different petition. But yes, it's one parcel.
So we're going to break it up then after we get this?
No, sir. And just to explain, as far as I've known, and again, you're taking my word from speaking to a neighbor who was there for 50 years, this has been underwater. There is nothing to develop here other than putting a boat dock on
we
this.
We had a big issue in Lake Michigan about water and lakefront, so.
So the intention is to make this one parcel, and normally you have your attorney here to advise you the effect of a vacation, but in this, my client happens to own both sides, so otherwise that would half would go to each parcel. My client owns all of the surrounding property.
And is the plan to leave it so it can never be split, or is any?
As I sit here today, yes, sir. I mean, there isn't any. There's an intention. The family owns another home close, and it's to have the kids around.
Can we stipulate that it can't be split if we give him the ground?
Say that again?
It's underwater.
So it can't be split up into 3 or 4 more houses with lakefront property?
Nope.
We can't do that.
And the adjoining property owner gets that half of the road. And so say on both sides, they get the line.
And I think to address your concern, even if my client were inclined, and they're not, I'm representing to you today, they're not. I can't speak for 50 years, but I can
That's
say
why I'm speaking. We did a plan here. Now we're abandoning it, and
but they would have to be
reuse it as a different plan then?
But they would have to come before this commission and ask to subdivide or otherwise create a different plan for this property. So to me, there's a check and balance.
That's the only problem I see with is somebody breaking it up after they get possession of it for their own economic value.
If they try to break it up, they're going to have to get it past the building commissioner or it would have to be a small subdivision, and they would have to come back and modify the subdivision itself.
And I want to add one other thing, which isn't evident here because we're not far enough along in the process. There are several lots. My beautiful art, and you can see why I'm an attorney and not an artist, my beautiful art indicates all of these together. They're separate lots, and they're separate taxable lots. And in order to build what they want to build, and we had some preliminary discussion with the building department, they're combining all of these into one large lot, which will make it difficult, and I think addresses your concern.
I don't want to make it easier.
Sure.
I saw the lots.
And it would be easier to do so as it is now versus they are combining them into one large lot.
I don't know the exact lot dimensions, but looking at this and having experienced old subdivisions, most of the time with all the older subdivisions, you can't build on one lot because of setback requirements, all of our current requirements. Fish Lake is a fine example. Hudson Lake, you got to have 15, 20 lots to build a house.
Yes.
So I'm not sure it's possible to break this up any smaller than what it is now.
20 by 100.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the way the petition reads, it says that you're asking for a vacation of Beach Drive located at 11 and...
Well, I think that's how the agenda reads. My petition...
The agenda would have us passing Mr. Bodie getting his right-of-way also.
This one, yes, and this one.
But my petition in the relief, we're asking I lay out, and there's a
Anne Marie, do you see that?
Yeah, but the findings will have the exact legal description. I don't use a common address when I draft them. I use the legal description with the lot numbers itself.
We will just exempt 115 Maple Drive.
Well, and Mr. Minnick, just to be clear too, my petition doesn't. I know what your agenda says, but my petition is very specific to my clients and the drawing.
We got to vote on what we have. That's what we're saying.
This is what was publicized.
This is what we're doing here.
No, the
The agenda reads wrong.
Yeah, the agenda
is posted, but the publication and the notices that went to the adjoining property owners in the newspaper are correct. Okay, because you have to have a legal description in the publication.
It's just that our agenda is reading incorrectly.
Well, but the
It says and. Read the petition.
The petition or the agenda? That's the agenda.
The agenda.
The petition, which is
That agenda.
The agenda is not. There's no legal requirement in the agenda.
I'm just saying that whoever makes the motion should delete that.
Oh,
Make sure that we have illustrated the correct paperwork.
Yeah, because there's no common address for these parcels at all.
What's the matter with that island? Let's get it going out there.
That island's a
We
mess.
live out there, let's get it going.
From a real estate lawyer standpoint, the island's a mess.
As of right now, does the county own this property? That's why we're vacating it, correct?
No, it's yes. No, this is not dedicated. It's simply a right-of-way.
Who's paying taxes on it today?
His client.
So,
No, his-
well, we want to put this on the rolls. It's a right of way.
Your client's paying because when they created in the old days, when they created the subdivision, they created rights of way. Okay, when you build a subdivision, the county doesn't own it until they turn it over to the county, and the county has specific requirements for construction standards. Okay, so that's the two way we have roads in this county. Most of the roads in this county are rights of way, and the owner owns to the middle of the road.
Okay, in this case, it's underwater. Yeah. So when they measure it for tax purposes, the size of these lots, they're not measuring out into the water, are they?
No, I don't. Actually, I don't think the tax rules change. You can disagree with me if you want, Chris, but I don't think the tax rules change on this type of a vacation because it was never dedicated.
And if you actually look at Beacon and you look at the wet land and you look at the floodplain, you'll see that originally that was the only dry spot on that lot. That's why that's there. But because of the drain on the lake and the lowered water table, now there is arable land to build on in the front of it. But if you look, you'll see that was why it was given that. That was the only way to pass through on that section of the island, but that has changed.
And everything surrounding it on the north and south sides, they're all used as lawns. They really are right now.
Absolutely.
They've always been unimproved. As far as the tax rolls, I'll defer to your counsel. If there is to be any gain, and that is a consideration from the county's perspective, is more tax revenue. This is as close as you get to increasing anything because, that other parcel that my client owns in the water is unbuildable at this point.
So which way are we getting the most money, before or after it gets
We're not going to get any less. We don't.
Not going to get any less.
Right, yeah, it's certainly not going to go down. There's no question about
Send
that.
the assessor there and get it reprogrammed on how much ground he's got now?
Yeah. Bigger house, and you get more taxes because we're going to get a bigger house.
I'll call the assessor
A
right
much
after
bigger
we're done.
house. The former house has already been demolished, so one of the reasons they're combining all the lots is to be able to maximize what they can do there.
I'm trying to understand if it's underwater, developable. Why go through the motions to vacate it if you're not going to do anything with it anyway? Maybe that's none of my business. Why vacate it? Why go through the motions if you can't do anything with it anyway? They're just going to sit
in a floodplain. It doesn't mean it's undevelopable. It means they're going to have to pay flood insurance on the home they build. It's not unbuildable.
Lakefront property.
Kristen, I hear you say your client's trying to clean it up and make it all one parcel.
Make it all
They
one
are.
parcel.
I think that's probably part of it.
Clear it
They're
up.
going to make a pier then, make it up there.
just for the sake.
And right now, anybody can
now.
But
Like he
anybody
said,
can
he
traipse across there.
there's
It's
the
public
issue.
way right now.
Yeah.
Anybody can plant right there. They can do whatever they'd like,
Right in their yard.
technically. And my client owns on the other side. And again, to those pictures show these parcels that are around this are truly, everybody uses them as their yards. And it's short of knowing or having a real estate attorney do the closing, some may not even realize that they have access on the north and south sides of Beach Drive and the other easement access. This one is different in that it doesn't cut off any public access to the water because they'd have to go through my client's properties west to east to get to this north and south portion of Beach Drive. So we're not cutting off access to the lake from the north and south because those easements stay. They're overgrown. Like I said, people are maintaining them as their own yards.
But
now.
it keeps people from, would be keeping people from going across.
My client's property, yes.
I see.
And yeah,
People do that now?
well, my clients just bought the property and improving it, but there are docks to the north and south on properties that might not be other people's, but that's not our fight, not our problem.
I'm just wondering why go through those motions?
You have to know my client, but that's just how they do it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I do think Mr. Minnie just brought up a great point. There's no remonstrators here from the lake because they've all done the same thing when possible.
That's right. And if they haven't, I can't believe they haven't. So.
It's a close neighborhood. No one seems to be opposed to this at all.
Any other questions, concerns from the board? Unless Mitch needs to speak about anything, then I guess we have no remonstrators out in the audience this evening. So could we entertain a motion for petition number 3?
Make a motion that we approve the petition for 111 Maples LLC represented by Chris Willoughby of Brady, Nelson, and James. Respectfully petitions the Plan Commission a vacated portion of the public street commonly known as Beach Drive located to the rear of the properties located at 111 Maple Drive, LaPorte, Indiana, Center Township.
Did you take it again?
Is there a second?
Oh, there it is. Never mind.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Come see us some other time. Just bring a PowerPoint. You know, all that
Like your
stuff.
paperwork back.
You want those wrecked back? I can't tell you. Take your recycle a tree, will you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Marie, I think you could go to that district and have some PowerPoints here instead of all this paperwork stuff.
Old business. Before this evening. New business. Is that your new business? You want PowerPoint?
I think it'd be a lot easier to run a meeting instead of looking at with a guy with a pointer, especially on this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Or a chalkboard.
Take that under advisement, Harold.
Well, I'm in meetings all the time. I know how much that can improve a meeting to have a fluid. Instead of people shoveling with 100. Make them lawyers get another hour of fees, you know.
Motion to
I'm always in it for you, you know.
If I had 4 feet, we're talking 4 to 5 hours because I don't know how to do it.
All those in favor for motioning to adjourn the meeting?
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.